is recording.
All set.
Thank you. All right. Quick reminder, we have to talk into microphones since we're on recording now. This meeting is being recorded and broadcast on the Town of Barnstable's Government Access Channel in accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20. The chair must inquire whether anyone else is recording this meeting, and if so, to please make their presence known. This meeting will be televised live via Xfinity Channel 8 or High Definition Channel 1072. It may also be accessed via the Government Access Channel live stream on the Town of Barnstable's website, which is available on the Town of Barnstable's website. Before we get going on the meeting and approve the agenda, I just want to quickly welcome Nate Ludke, who is our new Youth at Large member. We'll touch about this more later in the meeting, but I want everyone to know who he was at the table. So first up, approval of the agenda. Does anyone have anything to edit, to change? Not hearing anything. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Second. All in favor?
Second.
Aye. All right. Approval of the minutes from the previous meeting on 9/17. All right, does anyone have any edits to the minutes from last meeting?
No.
Not hearing any edits, does anyone have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Louise. I'll second. All in favor? Aye. All right. All right, next up, Kevin, operations report. Thank you first off for coming in.
Certainly. Let's see. We'll start off on September 3rd. Emergency contractor was called in to deal with a few issues that arose over the holiday weekend. The first of these issues was a cut and cap of domestic water service located at 141 Falmouth Road. This was due to a leak that formed. The second of the repairs was running of a new service from the curb stop to the property line, all the way to the building. And this service relay was located at the Daily newspaper on West Main Street. Tuesday, Wednesday, the 3rd and 4th, we had AD instrumentation in to calibrate all the chlorine and pH analyzers to ensure the accuracy and compliance. Our staff does monthly cleanings and maintenance on all these units as needed, but we like to do a quality control check of sorts at least annually with a professional contractor. Wednesday, Thursday, the 4th and 5th, we had Mayor Well Services in to perform our annual flow test at all the well sites. The service is extremely important to the Hyannis water system because the data that is collected from these tests is then analyzed and discussed by Veolia and the Hyannis water system supervisor, Hans Kaiser. We then select the 4 wells that we deem most advantageous to the Hyannis water system, and we have them rehabilitated to ensure maximum flow during our peak system demands. The 9th, Monday, emergency contractor, Bordelati Construction was on site at number 20 School Street to replace the first of 10 adult hydrant replacements on our deliverable schedule for fiscal year 25. This was hydrant H98. That was an extremely old hydrant installed back in about 1949. The new one was installed and placed back into service. Wednesday, September 11th, another busy day for our emergency service contractor. Bordelati was in to repair the curb stop at a residence that was having their driveway paved. As a result of the paving contractor hitting the curb stop, they caused a leak that had to be repaired immediately to finish paving the driveway. We then needed Bordelati services next at 120 Beerses Way to repair a leak between the water main and the curb stop valve. A leak had surfaced and needed some attention. The leak was located and repaired, and water service was restored to that residence. Last but certainly not least for the day, Veolia staff was out at 10 Toby Way to perform an inspection on a new service. It was a 1-inch tap off an 8-inch PVC water main installed to a meter pit, and the water service install passed inspection. They were permitted to backfill. Thursday, September 12th through the 14th, our long-awaited repairs to the Marydon treatment plant began. Stonkus Hydraulics, alongside of Veolia staff members Leon Matachinos, worked together to replace all the old 6-inch ductile iron piping and install a new 6-inch flow meter that was destroyed from lightning strike back in June. It was also decided at that time to replace chemical injection coils, tubing, and other miscellaneous parts. Due to the importance of this plant during certain times of the season, we can only address the train of the piping and the gallery at certain times. So we will methodically work our way through all 3 trains, replacing all the piping and the flow meters that met their demise during the lightning strike back in June. All the work is scheduled and expected to be completed by the end of October. Wednesday, September 18th, Veolia staff called out to perform an inspection at 201 Main Street for a cut and cap on the service at the main. The cut and cap were found to be up to the highest water standards, and they were told that you could backfill and continue with their job. And on the 20th, Veolia staff were called out to 55 Longwood Ave of a report of water flood in the basement. After the initial assessment, it was discovered that the shutoff located in the basement had broken off and was flooding the basement. Typically, all they'd have to do is turn the curb valve off, and that would have solved the problem. Unfortunately, the curb valve was inoperable, and the water main had to be shut down to isolate the leak in the basement. As a result, 10 homes were shut off temporarily while the leak was isolated. The water main was turned back on, and the water was restored to all the homes, and Bortolotti was called to schedule to replace the curb stop the following week. And that's it on the executive summary. A few pictures on the next page. Some work's going on around town. The broken curb stop from the paving job, and the daily newspaper. We're chugging away on deliverables. Meters and radios are going. I think actually this month we'll definitely be ahead of the game. Working on painting hydrants and trying to get that done before the weather turns, which we're running out of time. But we're getting there. I think that's all I have.
Thank you, Kevin.
Certainly.
Does anyone from the board have questions as we look through everything? So I've got one question. I just noticing, like, with the revenue side of stuff, pumping is level from last year, but it looks like building receipt revenue is just down. Is it just a function of timing?
We think it is, but normally things are a little bit better on the billed revenue than they are now. So we are down. I don't know exactly why.
Okay.
It's been a wet summer.
Yep.
But, it's been busy anyway, so
Yeah.
I can't really pinpoint to one. So that's why we hope that we'll just keep a close eye on it and
Yeah.
see if it mellows out. And
Yeah.
maybe October and November billings will be better.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else from the board? No. All right, Louise,
Excuse me?
do you have any questions?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No questions, right?
All right, then. All right, then we will move along, if that's all right with everybody. Up next is Matt, and I'm going to turn my mic over to you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to try and not speak too loud. That's usually my issue. Matt Robles, Senior Project Manager for Town of Barnstable DPW. Thank you for bearing with me and my slight tardiness today. Jumping into the capital improvement project updates. Item number 1, we have the new well exploration program, phase 4. This project's still in holding status right now while we work through the legal hurdles that we've been going through over the last couple months. I don't have any change from last time that we spoke to report to you guys. Happy to answer any questions, as always. If not, then moving into item number 2, we have our piloting testing project for the Mary Dunn and Airport wells. Kleinfelder, last time we had spoke, had given us a revised version of the executive summary for this report, which I've taken the time to review before passing it along to our assistant director at DPW. I have a couple of minor modifications for them to incorporate on that report before I'm ready to pass it off to him. I'm just trying to be cognizant of Kleinfelder's time and our staff members' times and address any concerns that I see him potentially having with that. Overall, the content of the report's pretty good. It's just a matter of phrasing and making sure that we're presenting the materials the right way to kind of get his buy-in. Happy to answer any questions you guys might have on that. Okay. Moving into item number 3, the new straightway water treatment facility and replacement of the Hyannisport and Simmons Pond wells. Always a busy project. Right now, we've wrapped up with DPW Engineering and Hyannis Water System and Veolia collaborative reviews of the 60% design plan set and specifications that Kleinfelder had submitted to us. We've also held our joint meeting with Kleinfelder to review those notes and provide them with revisions and edits for incorporation in the 90% design submission. Also, since we last spoke, we had a public meeting on Thursday, October 3rd at 6 p.m. This was hosted by DPW Engineering, Hyannis Water System, Kleinfelder, and was held with the MEPA analyst for MEPA review on the project, and was essentially a virtual site walk that we conducted via Zoom. But much like we reported to you guys previously for the EJ Communities meeting, this was really a informational session to allow any of the residents to come out, ask questions that they may have about the project or learn about it for the first time. We didn't have much participation from the public at that meeting, if any. We did not have any residents attend, but we are hosting a video of the presentation that we recorded and also the presentation slides on the project page for the Water Supply Division. And then over the course of the last week or so, Kleinfelder had pulled together the SRF loan assistance application package for submission to Mass DEP for the project. We got that in by the deadline this past Friday, so it keeps us on track with our SRF loan assistance application requirements. Those are the major changes that we have on that project.
Where do things stand right now with the potential for doing the wells now as a separate project? I know that was a question at the end of the last meeting.
We're trying to get the firmest handle that we can on the budget. So what we've asked Kleinfelder to do is make sure when they're submitting their 60% design budget to us that they've got a really firm understanding of what those costs are going to be and less flexibility than we've run into in the past. So they've actually contracted a third-party cost estimator to review their estimate and provide feedback. This was going to take a little bit longer, is what we were told by Kleinfelder, and they're still going through that process. But that's kind of the approach that they're taking at this point in time to try and firm up that design cost estimate. Okay. So we'll have more ideas once we've received that feedback. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Our other very active project is the lead service line inventory and replacement plan project, item number 4. Also, the Kleinfelder project, I'm happy to say, are on track, and we're actually able to submit the initial inventory today ahead of tomorrow's deadline for that. So we're in good shape. We're not going to be under the gun trying to get it in by a noon submission deadline and running it to everybody else, overloading the website. DPW engineering is still working to follow up with some of our customers who had completed the service line material survey, the brochure that we had mailed back in August. A lot of these customers had just submitted partial information or forgot to include some verification pictures or other information that we need to really be able to determine what their service lines material actually is. So I'm actually in the process of reaching out to these customers, letting them know what the issues were with their surveys, and giving them the option to submit corrected information or complete information for eligibility of the $35 bill credit. Mass DEP has also issued a couple of different letter templates, which we have to send out to customers that fall into one of 3 different pools of service lines identified in the inventory as either unknown service line materials, galvanized materials requiring replacement, or confirmed lead instances, which we have no confirmed as of yet. We have a couple of suspected customers that I'm working to follow up on. But these letters will need to be sent out within 30 days of the submission to Mass DEP, so 30 days of today, basically outlining to these customers either additional information is needed to confirm your service line material or next steps for the other 2 categories, galvanized requiring replacement or lead service lines. Kleinfelder had submitted comments to Mass DEP to get clarification or minor changes on the Mass DEP letter templates, which Mass DEP has then since issued updated versions, which will be circulating for review and final comments. Unfortunately, because these are Mass DEP templates, any changes that we submit to them, or any changes that we wish to see on these templates will need to be reviewed and approved by them. That being said, we hope to, over the next meeting or 2, have Kleinfelder come in and give a presentation report on what the findings of this inventory project were and the next steps that we'll need for compliance with Mass DEP and EPA's requirements for lead service lines in the future. We're going to ask them to summarize what their findings were, those next steps, and then the estimated cost to complete them. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
So first off, it's great to hear one that we don't think we have any lead, although maybe 1 or 2. That's not bad out of, 8,000 potential lines in the town. Also, great job to you guys in Kleinfelder for getting this submitted a day early. It's always really nice to see that. So I know you guys probably busted your butts to get this done. So thank you very much for your very, very hard work. And it sounds like things are in a good place at the moment.
Things are in a good place. And when I say we have a couple of instances of possible lead lines, these are customers who are self-reporting. So depending on how closely they've looked at things and what their institutional knowledge is of lead service lines, they may end up not being actual confirmed instances. But we'll be following up with these customers regardless to confirm one way or the other.
All right.
I'm sorry about that.
Me?
Did you have any questions?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay.
What is the question?
I was just making sure I wasn't ignoring anybody. Item number 5 is a Mike 2 project. This is the Route 28 and Yarmouth Road interconnection work. Water service curb stops for Yarmouth Road and Camp Street relocations are scheduled for the week of 10/21. This is planned to be night work, and water as-built for the work done to date have been requested by us from the state. So we'll be updating our GIS systems accordingly once we receive those files.
Awesome.
And hearing no questions, moving on to item number 6, the Route 28 East Sewer Expansion Project and Water Main Extension. This is also a Mike 2 project as well. The water work is complete. Substantial completion has been accepted by DPW and Hyannis Water System. DPW generated as-built have been created and submitted to the GIS coordinator for updating, which, just if led on to the next page, was really no change from the last time that we had met.
So you guys are almost done with that.
We are right there.
Awesome.
That project's wrapping up. That project's wrapped up. We've accepted the pump station and the infrastructure and the roads to this as of now.
Awesome.
Any questions on that one before I move on? Okay. Item number 7 is our Ocean Street water main project, also led by Mike 2. We have started to move into actually progressing to construction, which is a nice update from how things have been going previously. Our low bid contractor has been identified as Dickett Construction. We've been in touch with some of these we've been in touch with the contractor for pre-con meetings and are starting to gear up to begin the work. Happy to answer any questions best I can on that.
I'll just add, I know I was tough on you guys, I think a year ago at this meeting about that, so I'm really happy that it's getting rolling now and progress is being made, so.
That smile I gave you was very intentional for that reason. I'm going to pass it over to Tyler for item number 8.
Good evening, members of the board. Tyler Gilman, Project Manager, DPW. Speak to you about Mary Dunn. Things are moving again since the hiccup with the emergency shower in the building. We have a progress meeting this Thursday. I hope to have an updated schedule from the contractor. We've released back to them submittals specific to the building submittals, so hopefully we have an update on the schedule for when the building will be released to the contractor and then in production, because that will be our biggest holdup to getting this project moving. So their plan right now is to start construction of the foundation ahead of the cold weather, so that they're not doing concrete during cold weather, which would incur a change order because of that. So things are moving again, but no true update at this moment. Hopefully at the next meeting, we'll have a little more information about that.
Tyler, do you still expect to have this up and running by next summer?
That's what I'm pushing for. Okay. Yeah, I'm pushing for them to be done by March, knowing that, April was a drop-dead date given to me. So I'm shooting for a little bit ahead of that. Hopefully by next meeting, I'll have an actual concrete schedule for you to give that information.
Great.
Yeah.
All right. So item number 9 is the Mary Dunn 16-inch transmission main project. My hope was to, at last meeting, as I mentioned, get through the final design review on this, but unfortunately I was not able to tackle that since we last spoke. So now that we've got some of these other items either winding down or in a lull period, my hope is to get that review squared away and the approval to advertise construction IFB routed through our office and Hyannis Water Systems office for approval to bid the project and select a contractor. Happy to answer any questions you may have on that. Okay. And then item number 10 is the Mary Dunn Tank Number 1 rehabilitation project. We are in the process of having that reviewed internally by DPW Engineering and Hyannis Water System for approval to send over to procurement for issuing on the street and selecting a contractor. So fingers crossed that will be in their hands by the next time that we meet, and we'll be well on our way to having a contractor selected. Happy to answer any questions.
Have any other board members?
No.
Thank you for the patience and letting me get here a couple minutes late, and thank you very much for the time today, guys.
Thank you.
No worries. Thanks for coming out here. I know it's a little bit later than normal, so thanks for some time out of your both of your evenings to do
That's
this.
okay. 3 hours of Conservation Commission needed the extra time.
Okay. All right, up next, Gareth, to review fiscal year 24 fiscal.
Good evening, Board. My name's Gareth Markwell. I'm the Deputy Finance Director for the town of Barnstable, concentrating on municipal operations. Here tonight to review the FY24 financial statements for the Water Supply Enterprise Fund, which I believe you all have a copy of. Finance Director Mark Milne was scheduled to support the Comprehensive Financial Advisory Committee tonight, so his apologies for not being available. So you're stuck with me. We have 6 reports to review quickly tonight. The FY24 balance sheet, the statement of revenue, expenses, and changes in fund balance, budget versus actuals report, your schedule of long-term debt, list of active capital appropriations, and your capital projects balance report. I'll go through the reports. Feel free to ask any questions as we go through or save them till the end. Looking at the balance sheet for Barnstable Water Supply Enterprise Fund highlights our financial position and is a critical tool for understanding how well we are managing our public resources, our current financial commitments, and our overall financial health. The balance sheet is divided into three major sections: our assets, liabilities, and fund equity. Assets include our cash, investments, and any receivables that we have. As of June 30th, 2024, we had just over $8.2 million in cash or cash equivalents. Our non-current assets, these are kind of our long-term assets, such as our capital assets, infrastructure, buildings, and equipment. As of June 30th, net of depreciation was approximately $45.2 million. Total assets equaling $56.6 million. Our liabilities represent what we owe to external parties and future obligations. The largest amount in this category is our bonds payable for our capital program, currently outstanding $35.3 million in principal, with our longest loan going out to 2046. Total liabilities equaling just over $35.5 million. Fund equity reflects the difference between our assets and liabilities, representing resources available for future use and those reserved for specific purposes. We typically categorize these into three categories: reserved, unreserved, and investment in capital assets. We have reserved funds of just over $1.1 million. This is for our existing encumbrances and expenditures. Unreserved retained earnings of approximately $10 million and equity of $9.8 million in our capital assets. Total equity is just over $21 million. From these balances, we can determine what our water supply free cash status is. In Massachusetts, municipal free cash refers to the surplus funds remaining from the municipality's operations at the end of the fiscal year. It represents the portion of the unassigned fund balance that is available for appropriation. Free cash includes unspent revenue, surplus revenue above collections, savings from expenditures being less than budgeted, and accounting for deficits in any prior outstanding obligations. This is certified by the Mass Department of Revenue each year before it can be appropriated by the municipality. Our free cash was certified on October 4th, and I'm not sure if Hans has announced that, but it was certified at $5,709,658, as reflected in these documents. Once certified, free cash can be used for various purposes, such as balancing your budget, funding capital projects, reducing tax rates, or covering unexpected expenses. Free cash is a one-time source of funds from year to year and should not be relied on to fund ongoing operating expenses, if at all possible. It does serve as a measure of the municipality's financial health and its ability to respond to financial needs without borrowing or raising taxes. After we move on from the balance sheet, we have our statement of revenue and expenses and changes in fund balance for fiscal year ending June 30th. Total operating revenue was just over $9.1 million. Expenses totaled $5.7 million. So net revenue before transfers was $3.3 million. Transfers into the fund this year total just over $1 million, and transfers out just over $8 million. The transfers in of $1 million represents the amount budgeted in FY24 from the host community agreement portion in the budget, and the transfer out represents the transfer of bond proceeds from the capital budget to the capital trust fund after our bond issue back in June. We had a net decrease in fund equity of just over $3.6 million, from $24,713,936 down to $21,069,975. Very favorable budget results when comparing the actuals to budget as of June 30th. Total operating revenue came in above estimates at just over $1.1 million more than expected. Strong collections and charges for service, and then as you would expect, stronger than you've experienced in the past, earnings on investment coming in at just over $300,000. Same repeating in the expense side, came in within budget. Compared to the budget, approximately $185,515 below budget. So total surplus generated just over $1.3 million.
Outstanding.
That's the way you want to see it.
Yeah.
Included is your schedule of long-term debt. This is the bonds we have issued for existing projects. We have our June 30th, 23 balance and your June 30th balance in 24. We issued debt just shy of $7.9 million in the fiscal year. We made bond payments totaling $2.2 million, and so we have an outstanding long-term debt of just over $35 million as of June 30th, 2024. Next is the list of active capital appropriations. Pretty self-explanatory. This reflects all currently authorized projects, no matter what state of construction they're in. We have some that are 100% fully utilized, budget speaking, down to the ones on the bottom of the report where we're authorized in the FY25 capital plan. So the work is just starting to get underway with that. Approximately, we expended just over $18 million in FY24. We had $2.7 million encumbered and remaining budget of $48,910,262. Average 29.9% completion, but that certainly is skewed by projects, so it's not very useful. And lastly, we have our capital fund, slightly similar to the previous report. However, this reflects the cash balance for these projects. So mainly this highlights kind of what projects we have already borrowed for. You can see the projects down the bottom. They're the FY24's capital projects. We borrowed or went out to bond issue in the fiscal year for, what would say, 6 projects totaling $7.8 million borrowed. You'll notice that the fund balance has some negative numbers in the right-hand column. That totals approximately $1.2, or was it $1.2 million? So those are projects where we've started, we've incurred expenses or encumbered funds, but we haven't borrowed the funds needed to cover that. So essentially we are taking an internal loan, so to speak, against our fund balance of 1.2 million, and you'll see that reflected in the deduction of 1.2 million on the balance sheet on the first page when it shows the calculation for the free cash. So essentially, it's an internal loan, essentially, until we go out to the bond market. So your fund balance or free cash is actually essentially $1.2 million higher because you will be going out to borrow at some point, and that will be replenished. Yeah, great work through the year, everyone, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have a question. The Mass Clean Water Trust,
Use a mic.
Hans, I have a question. On the first page, the Mass Clean Water Trust, what is that?
It's basically, yes, it's the state loan agency. So it says clean water. It basically deals with sewer construction and drinking water construction. And it's the way the funding comes down from the federal government and from the state government to fund with low interest rates and sometimes with principal forgiveness these large municipal projects.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Hans.
The due from the Clean Water Trust of 65,000, so that was, I think, a interest subsidy. I think we've already received that in September, so it's kind of already there.
Thank you.
Anyone else have questions?
I do have one question. I have one question. Under liabilities, the accrued payroll is $8,420.98. Does that represent benefits and payroll taxes, or what does that number represent?
It could be a number of things.
Okay.
I would certainly have to look more specifically to see what makes up that amount, but you're right. It's essentially any payroll-related cost that it hasn't been paid but is owed at some point within the near future, or could be due within the near future. So an example might be the balance that we have in accrued vacation time that if an employee was to leave would be payable upon separation,
Okay.
as an example.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Got a question. Of the $35 million in total long-term liabilities outstanding, are principal payments made periodically, or are we making payments in chunks as the budget allows?
So that's prescribed in the bond
The
issuing
agreements.
at the time of issuance. It's typically a semi-annual payment schedule.
And the maturities range from how many years to up to 2046 it was?
Yeah, 2046 or 42. Typically, our projects, we would borrow for 10, 20. Rarely, we'd go out 30 years. So, yeah, but we'll have it staggered based on the start date of the projects or when we actually borrowed the funds.
Thank you.
Actually, in the rate tool, you'll be able to see that. It really is going to show very clearly how we stagger the different loan payments.
Yeah, it looks like it's in the budget, it's a fixed item throughout the budget, the P&I payments.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Gareth, thank you very much for coming out. I'm glad to see that we have good numbers.
Very good.
And so this makes these a more fun conversation.
I'm going to stick around and see this next section because we're right in budget season now.
You're 100% welcome.
All right. Next up, we have Aidan Oates in here from the Capitol to talk about our first run of the fiscal year 2026 budget and his fantastic budget model.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name's Aidan Oates. I am a senior analyst from New Gen Strategies. Our office is down in Annapolis. And you might be used to seeing Eric Colloquia here today. He unfortunately has, I think, 3 meetings across 2 states in the Midwest today, so he's a little busy. But he sent me in his stead. I'm aware that some of you might be very familiar with our model, but I'll start from the beginning, run through a basic overview of how it works, go through the model structure, show, since this is an update to a previous model that we've already built for you, show some of the major changes, and then show the preliminary rate projections. So the way our model works, we call it a revenue sufficiency model. And the way it is structured is, as I'll walk through, I'll go through the expenses, and then we project the revenues in order to meet said expenses and whatever debt coverage you might need as well. So we'll start here with the O&M expenses. We'll cover debt service as well as your CIP and any cash capital expenses that you might have. We'll walk through the revenue projections as well as your water usage projections, and then see the outcome at the end. So I'll start here on the O&M forecast, and in this model, the general theme of the model is that the O&M forecasts have been rather steady throughout the course of our creating this model for you. The major drivers of the actual rate projections are your larger CIP projects, as we'll take a look in a second. If it's a little small up there, I can zoom in as well. I see some of you. Yeah, let me see how far I can get without compromising too much. Is that a little bit better?
It's certainly better.
I think this might
Amy,
be
if
as
you want,
best
you
as
can
I
come
can.
sit
Yeah, I
here.
might do that, because it's kind of pointless. Thanks, Hans.
Okay, so this is our O&M forecast. We've included your most recent budgeted numbers. I've highlighted the major changes over the course of the last couple of years. On the O&M side of things, the primary change that you'll see is as a result of the Suez contract. So between the approved 2024 numbers and approved 2025 numbers, the total difference in your O&M expenses was close to $300,000, and at the same time, the difference between the Suez contract expenses was around $300. So the main driver of the O&M expenses is going to be that one line item, the Suez contract. The total amount that we reach in our proposed fiscal year 2026 numbers is around $5.9 million. And going outwards, we're pretty much just projecting a 3% increase on the current expenses that you have. One modest forecast that we make is that the interest and short-term debt payment, which has been relatively up and down depending on the year, is staying at the $50,000 that has been budgeted for the last couple of years outwards.
I see you're 5.5 the last 2 years. So you think that inflation has cooled enough to do a 3% bump?
Yeah, we think so.
Okay.
And a lot of that was driven by the Suez contract as well. It seems like most of the other line items, even labor costs, weren't nearly as much.
Okay.
So we'll head on to existing debt, and I can see how you were thinking that if this is printed out for you guys, that the existing debt, it doesn't really give detail on how exactly it's paid. But this is a rolled up version of the debt. So all you're seeing is the total principal and interest paid each year. And this is updated with the most recent numbers that were sent over. The highlighted difference here is from the fiscal year 2024 to fiscal year 2025, and that's with the addition of almost $850,000 of principal and interest payments between the 2 years, which, as you see at the end of our model, when we take a look at some of the rate projections, that does have an impact. Here is our capital improvement plan, and we have a listing of estimates for your projects going all the way out into the 2030s. These yellow spaces that I've indicated here are from previous years where we had inputs for the CIP. Those numbers have been redacted as we had included the existing debt issuances. So for any projects that we had in there before that we know debt has been issued already, that is built into the existing debt and is updated in the existing debt and taken out here. The main things that are driving the rate increases later on are this project here, the airport and Mary Dunn Wells, Mary Dunn Road treatment plants, south and north, which we have in the model in fiscal year 2027 as a $25 million project. And then in this row here, Hyannisport, Simmons Pond, and Straightaway Wells treatment plants, which we have built into the model as $35.5 million in fiscal year 2025. We also have a larger project in the far reaches of the model starting in fiscal year 2031. It's the new wells, construction of wells, treatment plant, and transmission main. The way that this model works is in this column here, we note a funding source, and depending on which funding source you select, we project debt in different capacities. So bonds and SRF loans, we project differently with different interest rates. The SRF loans, the noteworthy part of the SRF loans is usually the payments are delayed slightly, so there is a 2-year time delay between.
Is it correct? SRF loans, we don't pay until the project delivers, whereas bonds, we start paying as soon as the bond is issued. Is that correct?
The bond issues, you're going to have a year, the following year, you'll be paying.
Yeah. Whereas SRF, you think you get to finish the project and then pay.
I think so,
I
yeah.
think that's the thing we figured out with.
It's actually both of them.
Okay.
Most of the time, you don't have to start paying. It's a little bit like, actually what Gareth said earlier. During construction, you basically borrow from yourself.
Okay.
A little bit like how you, on the private side, how you have like a construction loan while
Yep.
you're building your house, and then after it's built and approved by the bank, then it gets transferred to an official mortgage. Similar to that, where you have a short-term loan or you borrow from yourself, and then when the project is totally delivered, signed off, sealed, done, then you go out for a bond or an SRF loan.
Okay.
Sort of how it works.
I mean, it's already packaged, I presume, at that
Yeah,
point.
and
but-
then with the SRF loan, you have, if you do PFAS, if you're in a environmental justice community, which we are, you sometimes get not only a very good interest rate, sometimes as low as 0%, but you also get principal forgiveness. So instead of paying 35.5 in a loan, principal interest, you might get $5 million off. They give you a grant, so you pay less.
Okay.
That's kind of like how it works.
Okay. Thank you.
So we have these funding sources built in, and it automatically would, in these next few tabs, which I'll briefly cover, will calculate an amortization schedule for these bond and SRF issuances. So this tab here, and I won't scroll through it too much because it's mostly math, is going to take the bond issuances that were covered from the previous tab, which had the capital improvement plan, and create individualized amortization schedules for issuances on each year. The same thing happens with the SRF debt, and you'll notice that most of the larger projects are SRF loan funded, which has a different interest rate on borrowings. We summarize all of the total debt service on this tab here, which just combines the amortization schedules that we built. And then we also project out the miscellaneous revenues, which are part of our revenue requirements. These are going to be the stable, or relatively stable usually, revenues that are not considered, or within our model, are not considered generated by our water rate projections. The two that I'll note here are the earnings and investments, which was higher than in previous years. And for the purpose of this model, currently we have it as relatively flat going forward. And the sale of bonds, which we don't project going forward. So all of these expenses and deducting our miscellaneous revenues adds up to our revenue requirement. And this is just a summary of all the expenses that I previously talked through. We have our operating expenses. This is your existing debt service. These are all of the different types of debt that we could fund your CIP projects through, as well as cash-funded capital. And that adds up to a total revenue requirement. This is the amount of revenue that we need to generate. The miscellaneous revenues are then deducted from that. So if you have alternative revenue sources, that's deducted to show exactly how much revenue you need to generate from rates, right? So for our model, that's the first half. Now this next piece is going to show you how we generate the rates, how we calculate the rates, and to meet these expense numbers that you have. So on this tab, we have let me scroll over a bit. We have all of the customer projections that you could possibly want. So it's all of your customers by meter size, both quarterly and monthly, to apply your fixed meter charges. We also have your fire hydrant data, so private hydrants and public hydrants, as well as your actual customer consumption. So the amount of consumption in each of your tiers by CCF. So the noteworthy piece here is the data that we received, which was fiscal year 2024 consumption data, experienced or showed a dip from previous years. But if we take a look at the historical data, we've been doing this for you for a long time, so we have an extensive historical data. Demand chart is not updating. It's effectively reverting to a little bit of a mean. So post 2020, coming out of the pandemic, there was a increase in water usage. The water usage that we saw in this past year seems to be about similar to what it was prior to 2020. So that is the water usage that we have currently in the model and what we're using to project going forwards. So there will be a little bit of a dip from 2023 usage to 2024.
Part of that too is we had quite a drought.
Yeah.
Not last year was a pretty wet year, but before that we had 2 years where, it's post-pandemic, and on top of that, we didn't have a lot of rainfall, so that boosted our revenues too.
Yeah, we saw, looking back at previous years' total usages, that it wasn't out of line compared to looking back 10 years. So we felt confident in taking this usage, even though it was a little lower than 23 and 22, and going forward and projecting from there.
Good to be conservative.
From here, we'll have calculated projected water rates. And this is the first time that you'll see that, and we'll take a look in the dashboard, that considering the expenses, we currently have preliminary projections of 8% rate increases needed to meet both the 4-month minimum fund balance as well as the expenses detailed previously. These percentages and everything are generated by the dashboard that I'll show you at the end. We apply the same rate projections to the fire protection rates as we do to the water rates. So at the top, it's driven by these 8%, and the 8% are applied across the board, same as water. And we take these generated projected revenues from both the water rates and the fire protection rates, and we apply them here on our fund balance projections. So last year's fund balance projections, I think we projected around $5.8 million, so we ended up being a little bit high on our projections last year. This year, we're projecting at the end of fiscal year 2025 the $5.9 million. And this includes generated water revenues, water rate revenues of $6.3 million, fire protection revenues of $1.7, and miscellaneous revenues of $2 million. So all of this can be shown on, I gotta scroll all the way back, on our dashboard. And this gives you a picture at everything that's going on. On this chart on the left, we have this blue color is our operating expenses. The orange is your existing debt service. Yellow is new SRF debt service, and we've got a couple other ones in there. But those are the main ones to take a look at. And that explains the story of what is going on here. Your operating expenses are relatively stable, increasing at the projected 3% rate. The existing debt service ticked up in 2025 with that additional $800,000 in debt payments that I talked about before. The SRF debt service kicks in a couple years after the major projects that were discussed on that CIP tab, with the first years of SRF debt service coming in or the full principal payments for SRF debt service coming in 2028. The second project, the full principal payments from that will come in 2030. So you'll see this sliding, or the uptick in expenses related to those specific projects, resulting in debt service that needs to be covered by your rates. Over here on the right side, we have the minimum recommended fund balance, which we have as a number of months of total expenses. So even though this looks flat, it's just representing the 4 months of total expenses. What it's actually indicating is a ever increasing amount dictated by your expenses as well as your debt service. This is the actual months of expenses that you have projected in fund balance at the end of each fiscal year. So throughout the course of us doing this model for you, the rate increases that we've put together have resulted in this upward swing in fund balance that we're trying to build to accommodate the larger CIP projects that are going to result in this uptick in expenses. And the rate increases that we have below that result in this ending year fund balance, projected ending year fund balance, are starting in 2026, 8% to accommodate those CIP increases.
Thank you, first off. I know it's a lot for those who are new to follow.
Yeah.
So this is the time where what we like to do is just kind of role play scenarios, ask them questions. I know I'll start. I've got a litany of them, so I'll get going. So first, I know in the past we've liked to keep it at a 5%. Obviously, we're going for an 8% increase. Which, do you mind opening up and going back to fiscal year 20, opening up 20 and 21 and 22 on this?
Yeah.
It is added,
Let me see if oh, all right. Here we go.
Yeah, so if I remember, we had a couple of years where under Steve's leadership, we unfortunately, when we were getting that big dip in 2020, we were getting real tight on cash flow. We had to do some big rate increases. We've been able to moderate in 22 and 23 and 24 and 25 with those 5%, but obviously we're seeing a raise back up to 8. Do you mind throwing in just on the dashboard for 26 what a 5% increase would look like?
Sure. Just for year
Just for
2026
yeah.
or going outwards?
And so watch what happens with the chart at the top. You know, we're good in the short term, but we're facing a big dip in the 2030s. And I have a couple more questions, and Hans, I need your input on these. With where things are with the new well program, do we still think it's a 2031? Or do you think that we can?
The answer is there, and I wanted to talk to you before the meeting, but we didn't get a chance to do that. If you go to the capital plan, there's a couple of things that, from a practical standpoint, are not going to happen the year it's projected. Like the first one is, for instance, the airport and Mary Dunn wells, Mary Dunn Road treatment plant, south and north. Yeah, the 25,000. That
25
is
million.
definitely not going to happen in fiscal year '27. I'm thinking, at this moment, I would bump it out at least 1 year. So bring it out to fiscal year '28. It might even be another year. And you'll see that will change your projections.
It'll allow.
I'm not used to using the online version. There we go.
Let's see what that does on the dashboard.
So again, we're still now projecting, and so it makes actually the problem bigger down the road.
And then the other one would be, well, you're doing 5% now, right?
That's still holding at 5%, because that's, from my conversations, that's often the number that's the preferred target number if we can do it, obviously.
And the other thing is the new well program, which is, the 3 million right there. Same thing there, bump it out at least 1 year. And then the 25 mil is bumped that out another year, at least. Because it just ain't gonna happen that quick.
So that's where we end up. We still have a dip. We're pushing the dip out a little bit. So that's just to give kind of people the understanding of where we are. So do you mind going back to now with that 8% for our next?
Sure.
Basically what we end up doing is we're playing with where we are with debt and just how much our rates have to go up and trying to keep them as low as possible while still not starving ourselves of cash.
Yeah, the other thing that's happening is we used to get $1 million from the Vineyard Wind. And in the model, that's changed to 500.
Yes. Let me pull that up.
Is there any thoughts if we'll continue to get $1 million as that goes online? I think that changes as they start paying taxes on property, correct?
Pay taxes.
Yeah, don't quote me on this, but I think that is a set amount
Okay.
that will need to sunset at some point.
The other question on potential other sources of revenue, this is more of a one-time, is the potential for settlement money from, I think, is it one of the PFAS settlements?
Yeah,
That we
3M.
could, the 3M? I think that's, something around 7 million potentially?
6 or 7 million maybe. We won't know that till January, February
Okay.
timeframe. But it's too late
Yeah.
for the rate setting, so you can't count on something that's, you don't know yet.
Yeah, understandable. And then I think also on this, I noticed on the CIP, capital, CIP tab, because you have the additional 3 million and 26 now for the likelihood that we have to. So this may have been touched on the last few meetings, but the Hyannisport well program has been a little more expensive than anticipated. We may move part of the project, the wells themselves, to a separate project or second debt issuance. Is that a better way to put it, Hans? So that would be a $3 million to cover that, and the 35 million would go just to the treatment plant itself. So that's a new, for those who were here last year, that's a new number.
Yes, to be honest though, we're not sure yet. So as soon as we have a good cost estimate, we will know in the coming couple of months, we will know if the 35.5 is enough to go out to bid just for the treatment plant alone. If it's not enough, and we still need more money, then what we might need to do is the extra ask, combine that with the 3 million for next year, and ask for it one more time in this fiscal year.
Okay.
But either way, it's gonna be somewhere in that ballpark. Construction costs been going crazy,
Yeah.
basically. It's really difficult to do a solid cost estimate on construction right now for utilities. I mean, on the sewer side, it's
Across the board in every
Yeah, it's tough.
project right now.
So do you mind going back to the dashboard and then putting back in, say, 7 or 8%? Well, we were at 8, so let's
Sure.
Go back to
7%.
for 26, yeah, let's, so where does that leave us?
Let me see. Sometimes I need to click out and come back in to make it.
I think you were at 26,
Yeah, 26, 7%.
7. I mean, we still have a problem in the 2030s.
So is that just changing the 1 year and then the other years
The
going
others are still
forward?
at 8, still at 8%. Yeah, they're still at 8%. I mean, we just have a lot of really expensive infrastructure we really have to build that we have to pay for. And, we may get monies, as we said, we may get monies from settlements that can help offset some of these future expenses, but we can't count on that right now. That's at least my take on this is. But is anyone, quite, yes.
First, thank you for the explanation. That was excellent. My understanding is through the model is that you assume that consumption will be fixed for the whole model?
We do leave consumption fixed. We have options to change that, but in the past, we have left it flat going forward. So we've continued to leave it flat going forward.
Do we ever consider large development projects in the town by adjusting consumption in the model?
You can. The problem, or that's not the problem. The reality is Hyannis, the water system, Hyannisport, West Hyannisport, is pretty much built out. We don't really have like land to develop and put, new big time apartments in that some towns do have. The only thing we really do right now, and you see that happening all over the place, is redevelopment. It is still not sufficient to cover any of these major expenses. So, does it help? Yes. A drought for a couple of years, heck yeah, that will help, but you can't guarantee it. And so it's not a fair way or a proper way to balance the budget.
Yeah. It just, I know you're probably thinking about the, the new apartments that are by next to BJ's. We're not in our water district. Those are Barnstable Village, believe it or not. So.
Thank you.
Oh, no, it's just here.
Amy or Tim, do you guys, either of you have questions?
I don't think so. It was a great description of everything that's going on. We've seen the model before, so we kind of knew.
Yeah, I mean, I think that my feeling on this is we're starting to face the bill we have to pay.
Yeah.
It's not the funnest to have to go out for 8% rate increases, but we're either going to pay it now or we're going to pay it later with a bigger jump. Nate, you're new to all this. Any thoughts, questions you have as you look at all this?
So 8% is pretty high, yeah?
We have done higher. I think we are at 9% in 2019. I think if you go back and look at what he's pulled back, it'd be great if we could keep it at 5%. That's kind of our target. But at the end of the day, because we're an enterprise account, we have to live and die by our revenue. Mm-hmm. And if we have to spend a bunch of money on water treatment facilities because we have to, then we just unfortunately have to kind of eat the bill. It's not a fun thing to have to go do. The great news is this was talked about last year. We do this every year. There's some systems that do this every other year, every 5 years, and they just kind of set and forget it for that time, and they can get things out of whack, and suddenly they're really making hard course corrections. So we are trying to, we have to eat the elephant, eating it with smaller bites now than a giant bite down the road.
Yeah, we have several clients that are looking at 30, 35 plus rate increases, so this wouldn't be the highest.
Wow.
Whoa.
Can you also show what it actually means for like the average residential customer? Because the average residential customer gets a water bill 4 times a year. And what does an 8%, how much money are we talking?
Yeah, there.
We do have that built in the model.
You probably have it in the dashboard, I think.
Yeah, I think it is the bottom. Yeah, it's at the bottom of the
Oh, here it
dashboard,
is.
so you look way down.
All the way down.
Bills. So we are, what column, what's 26? Column,
Let me freeze this for you.
It's on the very bottom. It's commercial, it's average. Yeah, it's the last,
we're way over that.
that's on a section right here.
Look at those top three, I think. Average, median, and mode.
Yeah.
So, or mode, so median, average, I'll look at those two.
Yep.
So the median, you're looking at a rate increase of $10 a quarter, $40 a year, which obviously is money. But we're also not talking, I hope we're not making such a big rate increase that, we're breaking everyone's bank. Obviously, for some people, $10 a quarter can be a difference.
Question, the commercial rates are the same as residential rates? Is it 8 across the board, or we do?
Across the board.
Yeah. How much of our revenue is from the hospital? Are we talking like a significant amount or some percentage points?
No. No, they're a good customer,
Yeah.
but he's a better customer. So, yes.
Okay.
So,
Because I know they're the one people who have an opportunity to just turn a switch and,
yeah, they
Take-
won't.
okay.
They won't, because the pressure that we provide, the hospital, Cape Cod Hospital is serviced by not only us, the Hyannis water system, but also by Yarmouth. It's a requirement. They just for redundancy, they need to have alternative water supplies. They prefer us because we have higher pressure. We chlorinate our water, just a little bit, just to make sure it's safe. And just the fact that we have enough flow, we have enough, actually better water pressure, they prefer to take water from us. And the Hyannis Fire Department enjoys that too, so they have less problems.
Gareth, do you have any questions with the?
No.
No? Okay.
This isn't new. I've seen most of this. So.
Okay. Anything we're going down the wrong path on? Is there any assumptions we're making that we shouldn't be,
I would caution earnings on investment. I think it was pretty level. I think I saw that.
Yeah, we left earnings on investments as level, or relatively level, going forward, and then we didn't try to project any sale of bonds. So I'm not sure if that, going forward, would make too much of an impact. If you have any numbers there, we could definitely include it.
I think as a whole, we're fighting internally of whether or not we should increase in our general fund operating budget the earnings on investment projections, but we're always fearful that it's going to turn on us and then we're chasing revenue. So I think we're pretty much level, if not decreasing in outer years. But then as your fund balance, how do you project your fund balance to change over the years?
This is our projected fund balance down below. Here we go. So we've got the dip in 2030 and 2031.
So do you have a corresponding decrease in earnings on investment?
We currently don't have it projected as a percentage of, but we can switch that.
Yeah, okay.
Are the earnings on investment tied to the Fed interest rate?
Not tied to, but it's a good indicator of if you see trends, if they're decreasing, then expect most interest rates to be going down as well, including the earnings.
Okay.
That's fair to assume we should.
Yeah, could we do that?
Yeah.
Maybe somehow make,
It doesn't look like you're overly reliant upon them yet,
Yeah.
but you're going to be chasing it at some point.
yeah. But we can chase it a little bit, be a lot better than chasing the big amount. Amy, do you have any questions?
I guess, when will we know about the money specifically from Vineyard Wind?
I think we get payment August, beginning of the fiscal year, is that right? Or the 1 month later?
I'm not certain off the top of my head.
No, you sent me a nice email saying we got the money every year. But I think it's sometime in the summer.
That's a pretty hard number in there.
I think, well, at some point, we're going to have to sunset it.
Pretty good chunk of change.
Yeah, because we have the host community agreement that was X amount of dollars upfront each year, but as they come online and start paying taxes, then that payment decreases. This year, I think, became our second highest taxpayer in Barnstable, so things are moving along. So those payments will start to reduce.
Okay, yeah. I'm glad to see we're then projecting already having that for this budget cycle.
Right.
Good.
Yeah, I could definitely, we'll talk, and for the next,
Yeah.
the final run, which is going to be on Zoom next month,
Yep.
right? We should have a more definite answer.
Yeah, so we'll, just as a reminder, we'll basically go back. We've given our, I think, feedback. Unless other people have more, you'll work on those models. We'll do a final run. Basically, what we're going to do at the end of that is sort what are we going to then vote on as a proposed rate increase, and then then that'll have to go up for public comment and for acceptance. So that doesn't happen until the springtime. So we're like 6 months out-ish
Yes,
from an actual rate being approved.
that's correct. And the good thing too is during that time, I mean, we basically make the best decision we can
Mhm.
based on the information we have and the data we have. But every month we proceed, there's new data, there's always little changes coming through, and sometimes they're big. I mean, if there's an announcement in January or February that all of a sudden we get a big, large amount of money coming from the 3M lawsuit or anything else, or all of a sudden there's another Vineyard Wind number 2 in the works, who the heck knows?
Yeah.
You know, there is the flexibility to run the model again and say, hey, can we do anything about this 8% rate increase?
Yeah.
So you will see that you got to have the ability to have that flexibility all the way through probably around February, March. And then you kind of have to finalize the budget because you have to get to town council, get the votes, and have it solid for, the start of next fiscal year. You can't wait till last minute, but we still have some time.
Yeah.
And the reality too is that the operating budget, even though it is, we're voting on it next month, there are still personnel issues that need to work through. So there's always little adjustments in the operating budget for next year that will come through. So it's not perfect, it's not totally finalized. It's just, you do the best you can with the information we have right now.
All right, so is there any other questions or comments? Otherwise, I think probably time to move on. very much.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for coming in.
For sure.
Travels back to the district.
Thank you.
All right, next item is fiscal year 25 capital project timeline. Hans?
Yeah, I'll take that. It's basically, we just wanted to go over the CIPs that were approved by town council for fiscal year 25 last, I think it was in April. We got the approval to move forward on 4 capital projects, a total of $39.8 million. The first one is the pipe replacement and upgrade program, 1.5 million. What we're doing right now is we have allocated this to the second phase of the AC replacement project on Longview Drive. We're working together with DPW Engineering Administration. They're replacing the sewer. Or not replacing the sewer, they're actually putting sewer in the Longview Drive area and adjacent roads. And we basically are working with them to replace AC water mains in that area, same area. It just makes sense to dig up the road once and get both things taken care of.
And I just want to add, it was interesting when we did the first of the water, special town council meetings about water, we talked about AC pipe. We had one council member who was like, kind of saying, how quickly could we get it all replaced, you know? So this is definitely, in some of their eyes, a important thing to be replacing this asbestos concrete cement pipe, because it's not great. It has the word asbestos in it, and nobody likes that word. So, you know, it's a logical kind of kill some multiple birds with one digging operation.
Dose?
Yes, that's right. But you don't have to worry about it. Well, you can worry, but what we do is we do test for asbestos every 3-4 years, and I always post the test results on the website, and it is 0. So we do not have any detects on that right now. It's part of our corrosion control program too, where we make sure there's a protective coating on the inside of the pipe to protect the drinking water. The second part is the $200,000 CIP for water supply wells, pump station, and treatment plant repairs and upgrade. We're working on roof and trim replacements, electrical motor controls, and related design work, SCADA computers and antenna upgrades. The third one is the straightway filtration plant construction, $35.5 million. Matt Robel's been talking about that, so we're moving ahead with that. Looks like we are probably going to finish the design in January, February, hopefully a little bit earlier, but that's kind of like how it goes. Then we need to get the bids out in the spring and probably start construction in the fall. The fourth one is the Meriden filtration plant. Design, $2.6 million. We're working on finalizing the pilot study report, and hopefully we'll have a presentation for the board in the coming couple of months, and then work through selecting a designer for the project. So most likely, and that's why I said, you know, the construction of the Meriden filtration plant it's going to take a little while, because I do want to see the design done a little bit differently, with a preliminary design first to iron out all the details, and then do the final design. And that way it's not, it's a little bit more manageable project, that's all, okay?
Hans, that also to get the budget more sure, so that when we go, trying to avoid what's unfortunately happened to Straightway, where, shit, we need more money, basically.
Yes. Yes, and part of that is that, but the biggest part of that is actually the whole inflation issue that we have to deal with.
Yeah.
And that's that line item.
Great. Any questions from anyone on the board about these things? Hans, update on the review of the uncollectible accounts and liens?
Yes, the person that was in question the last board meeting, we finally got a hold of them, and just a few days ago, he paid in full. So we are all set, and the rest of the our customers that are delinquent or have issues, the lien process is going through. It's right now in the tax assessor's hands, and they're taken care of.
We've- Mike?
So with those, when they paid it in full, did it go into the water department, or did it go to the tax?
It went into the water department's accounts because there was such an insecurity or unsurety of what was going on with that account, we had to actually take it off the lien list.
Okay, all right,
And so that worked out good.
okay.
Yep. All right, any other questions? Nate, to give you just a 2-second, tell you what we're dealing with is every year we have accounts that are not paid their bill for that year. And at every summer, we go through a process of reviewing those and taking them off of our, current due, past due bills and putting a lien on the property. So when it sells, we will eventually collect that money. Any other questions about that?
No.
Oh, okay. As I mentioned at the beginning, Nate has joined us as our youth at-large water board member. So Hans and I met with the youth committee a couple weeks ago. Nate stepped up and said he wanted to take part in this. He's a local resident at BHS, I think a junior.
Sturgis.
Sturgis,
West,
okay.
Sturgis West.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So do you mind taking 2 seconds and introducing yourself? And
I go to Sturgis West next to the Melody Tent. It's my senior year. In the winter, I like to snowboard. In the summer, I'm a lifeguard, ice cream scooper. So,
awesome.
and I'm excited to be here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So looking at colleges now?
Oh yeah, I'm looking around.
Yeah.
Just toward UMass Amherst, like last weekend. So that was
Awesome.
very fun.
Well, please feel free to speak up, ask questions. We're here to educate you.
Thank you.
So-
Thank you.
And I will at times call you out to see if you have any questions specifically.
Happy to be here.
Yeah. Any questions from board members on?
Welcome, thanks for.
Thank you guys.
Yeah. We'll give you an official formal welcome to the board. Next up, the water plant tours. So in about a week and a half, we're going to have tours of the Maher Water Facility. These are similar to the ones we offered in the spring for town council members and CFC members. Just a chance for our public to get to know what we do, what effort goes into basically creating the water that you get in your tap, and what it takes to clean that, deliver it. So I'm going to be there for the 9 and the 11, and probably maybe the kickoff for the 1. I am looking for some help if people have a chance to come in. So we have someone with Hans at all time on tour, and then someone also waiting out front. People will wear hard hats and glasses and closed-toed shoes. And, hopefully we have some people show up. Hopefully we don't have too many people show up just because we can only do about a dozen people a tour. But if we do, then we'll just have another time and have people come back. And
How
I've
are
also-
we advertising this?
Great question. So we have talked to town council, or talked to town manager. They're posting on the website. I'm going to take this week and talk to all the council members, especially those that are mainly those. Actually, no, great opportunity. We all have assigned council members. Mm-hmm. Talk to your assigned council member. Talk to them about what what we're doing, just kind of some information. I'm happy to put together some language in the next day or so that you can just send it to them to make them know, let them talk to their constituents. You know, I'm going to post on my little community board in our neighborhood. If people have a community board they're part of and wish to post, feel free to. That'd be like next door, Facebook or something. So kind of just a very organic getting the word out.
Did you want to draft an
Yeah.
announcement and then just forward it to all of us, and then we can?
Yeah, I've got some language I actually wrote up today for the town that they seem to like. So I'll just, kind of what the mission of this is, I'll put together something tomorrow.
Okay. And then send it to us?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and so, you know, if you have a chance, please help us stop by for a little bit. I understand people do have other commitments on the weekends, so,
Yeah, I can stop by. I'm
Awesome.
around.
Yeah, I can
Awesome.
too.
Yeah.
thank you. Any other questions about the tours?
Nope. You can count us in.
I guess one question would be, I think there were designated times, so
Yep.
the tours take a little while, so if
Yeah.
you're the person standing at the front,
I'm
you're not entertaining for an hour.
probably going to be there for at least from the 9 to the 11 towards the one. I have to go to, my wife's playing in a concert that afternoon, so I have to go because I have something the next day. I'm going to be the one to stay up front, just so that, you know, because I've done the tour with Hans a number of times, and we'll be out there to talk to people and explain what they're seeing out there. Say, hey, we just had a tour. If you want to come back in about an hour and a half, I'm not expecting people to stand around for 2 hours waiting for a tour to end.
Right.
And the tours are just of what's in the Maher facility. We're not going off-site to any of the other wellheads, water tanks, or anything like that.
Okay.
That's a lot of talking for you, Hans.
Well, I'll just drink water in between.
Very clean. Good quality.
There you go. Yes.
All right. Any other matters not anticipated? I don't have anything. Does anyone else have something they want to talk about?
No?
Okay. Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Sam.
Very much. We are all set.